Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the EV portion of our morning show. We're going to have Instagram come live here shortly. Had a little bit of a glitch with the cell phone. And I'm Pete Gruber, by the way.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning, everybody.
Glad to have you join us. Glad to have you back. The image behind us. You know, sometimes artificial intelligence just gets it right. And this is one of those times where Jesse said, "You're not going to believe this, Pete, but look at this." What we're trying to do here is show that the auto manufacturers, the EV manufacturers, like dominoes, were falling all along, and Stellantis just announced that they are adopting the NACS standard now.
That's right. They are the last domino to fall. That's one of the most appropriate AI pictures I've seen yet.
You know, what's amazing is last night I sat there for a good 45 minutes trying to get a picture for the Roadster podcast. And what I asked it to do was, since we're going to do a before and after shot, an old Roadster beat up, dilapidated, and what it would like to become, you know, gleaming, new, shiny. And it was a simple prompt. I said, show me a Tesla Roadster with a large mirror, looking into the mirror with the Roadster anticipating what it could become.
Sure.
It struggled with that. It put the crappy Roadster in the mirror. The mirror was too small. Then I said, make it bigger. And it was like a constant, attempt to get it right. And it never did get it right. So the automatopoeia, the humanizing of an inanimate object, it doesn't understand yet. Yeah. And then I went a step further. I asked ChatGPT-4 to tell me what prompt would work best for this notion that I had, this idea. And it gave me a wonderful prompt, and it still didn't get it right. Then you put it into DALL-E,
Yes.
and you try to generate the image. But Anyway, this one is perfect, right on track, and it looks like we've got people streaming in already. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Randolph Schnack says, good morning, Tesla lovers. Hey, we'd love to hear where everybody's coming in from as well. I can tell that we've got an international audience this morning.
Instagram, I can tell. Mano Joseph Maombi says bonjour.
Bonjour.
Instagram, Schuster Thomas. Hallo aus Deutschland. Hallo, Herr Gruber. That means hello from Germany. Hello, Mr. Gruber. Yeah. For those of you that didn't catch that, right? Thank you for joining us from Germany.
And Highlander on YouTube is joining us. Lots of smiles and yeah. So great to have you, Highlander.
And as always, this is for the first hour now. We're going to talk EV, general EV issues. And then at 11 o'clock, we're going to switch over to Tesla Roadster. And it doesn't mean that we'll only talk about Tesla Roadsters, but our audience generally prefers that because a lot of them have Roadsters.
Yeah, that kind of becomes the main topic, and that's such a specialty for us. And then CamCam413 on YouTube says, good morning, gents. Good morning, Cam.
And by the way, we want to thank everybody for the support that we get on these social media platforms. It helps fund some things here. I mean, if you could see our studio, you would see lots of cameras and computers. And I mean, you're the CFO. You're always getting requests. We need more hardware. We need more faster this, faster that, right?
Oh, yes.
But our audience really helps. The subscriber count going up. We get some revenue from YouTube and some of the other platforms. And, we're up to 184,000 subscribers now on YouTube.
That's just so impressive.
We think we're going to cross over 200,000 by the end of this month.
That'll be great. Keep it coming.
Yep.
And then Facebook, our international audience is great today. Good afternoon. It says, I'm watching you live from Ghana. Good work. So there we go. We've got Africa. We've got France and Germany represented.
Donato Amos from Facebook, yes.
And then Wayne Levitt on YouTube is from Perth in Western Australia. So good evening to you in Western Australia. If yes. You're probably close to midnight watching us.
Instagram, JourneyX127593 says hello. TikTok, Cyberbeast. Oh, he says, I got my Cybertruck yesterday. Good for you. There we go. We're going to get some videos out of this one.
Yeah, congratulations. We knew it was coming, and I'd love to hear your take on it once you had a chance to drive it for a couple of weeks.
Oh, TikTok. Okay, our first question about sunglasses. Mr. Anthropy, why do you always wear sunglasses? Well, there's a very good reason for it, which we have not yet revealed. It has created so much mystique and so much mystery We're just staying with it, and we will eventually do a big reveal, and you will find out why sunglasses are usually involved in Gruber productions. And the odd thing is, even our guests oftentimes wear sunglasses. There's just something about this aura that we have here.
There definitely is, and it's not just guests in studio. We've had guests that are coming in.
Zoom calls.
Zoom calls. Ingemar Anderson, and among others.
Right, right. And if you want some glimpses into why this might be important, take a look at the Blues Brothers movies. Take a look at Matrix. Take a look at what rock stars usually wear on stage. Now, we consider ourselves rock stars, do we not?
Well, sure, of course.
One customer last year said, "You guys are the new Click and Clack of the automotive world." Remember the Click and Clack show? You would hear them on NPR. It was voice only.
Yeah,
and these guys are always talking about carburetors and.
It was such a high compliment. That was so great.
It was.
So on Instagram, Journey X127593 coming in from India.
India.
So that is, let's see, Asia, Europe, Australia,
Germany.
Germany. We've got
Africa.
North America, we've got Africa. I think we have every continent, all 6 continents represented this morning.
And then YouTube, NAS now says it shows 185,000 subscribers under the Gruber name. It looks like we've gone up. We were on the cusp, I think. 184, 800 something.
Nice. Panato Aimos on Facebook says, I'm a mechanic from Ghana.
Well, thank you for joining us. Yeah, we appreciate anybody in the trade joining us and chiming in when you have, if you can help answer some of these questions. Highlander, he's a regular, and his catchphrase is, kindness is free. Thank you for the bagels, by the way, sir. That very much appreciated. You're always a great gift giver. He says, never reveal the Highlander. Keep the mystery alive.
Yeah, that's about the sunglasses. He said,
yeah,
let's keep the mystery alive. Well, I got a
news
article
item
here.
Yeah. It looks like AT&T orders electric vehicles from Rivian. And we just did a Rivian bio, by the way. One of our new series of videos that are coming out regularly now. One of the things that's propelling us actually on YouTube. We decided to start doing short bios on some of the movers, shakers, and people in the industry. This one was on RJ Scaringe. Interesting little bio, and Rivian looks like they're here to stay. But anyway, for those of you interested, Mary Barra's out there now. We've got RJ Scaringe, Peter Rawlinson with Lucid. That was also a well-received bio. Got a lot of good feedback from the social media, accounts.
And it's nice because a lot of these, like RJ Scaringe that came up recently and Peter Rawlinson, these guys have vetted this with us as well. They've been so kind as to update them, revise them, and give us something that they're authorizing.
Absolutely. So this order from AT&T for Rivian, it goes like this. Rivian Automotive will begin supplying its state-of-the-art commercial vans and R1 trucks to AT&T's fleet early this year, according to AT&T officials. The program signals a new chapter in the partnership between the Irvine automaker and Dallas-based AT&T, which is the exclusive provider of digital connectivity to all Rivian vehicles in the U.S. and Canada. Rivian also partners with Amazon, which has ordered 100,000 vans for delivery, and this will be fulfilled by the year 2030. So far, Amazon uses 10,000 custom-made Rivian vans for deliveries in the U.S. and Europe.
Well, I think this is cool, and it speaks to Rivian. And you remember Rivian and Amazon a while back, they were saying, hey, Rivian said to Amazon, we'd like to not be exclusive to you because you're taking van deliveries too slowly. Amazon said, fine, but we might not order 100,000. For a while, Rivian blinked and said, okay, whatever. But then they came back and said, you know what, we've kind of reconsidered here. We need to drop the exclusivity agreement, even if it means we drop some vans from you. And then essentially Amazon was the one that blinked and said, yeah, okay, well, we were just kind of kidding. We'll still buy the 100,000 from you. And now they've got AT&T that's come in with a large order.
Which is puzzling because with an investment by Amazon into Rivian, you would think that they would be supporting their growth, which would include, being non-exclusive and being able to sell to other companies and other types of clients.
Sure. Yes.
You too, Wayne Levitt. It's 40 plus in Perth.
And that's going to be centigrade, by the way, because Australia is Celsius.
You're right, which means it's summer there. Yeah,
it's summer.
It's Phoenix, Arizona weather, actually,
that's
40 C. Yeah.
Yes.
He says, my Model S started leaking jam from the big screen. Oh, yes.
Oh, man.
We call it plasma. And, my wife was furious. It gets so hot here, and of course they drip, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, she had these beautiful, subtle leather gloves. And
oh, no.
Yeah, and she had them right down below the screen there in that little console area where you would store things like that.
Yeah.
And that plasma leaked down those gloves, and there was no way she could get that off because it permeates the leather, stains it, and keeps it sticky. You know?
So it kind of soaks into that leather. Oh, it's just...
Got some images up there for you of the Rivian vans.
Oh, there we go.
Good.
So this is just a video they released a while ago, but here's some images. Apparently they're selling these to pretty much anybody now, commercial fleet, U.S. fleet vehicles.
I see the blue Amazon Prime vans here in the Phoenix area regularly.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be, from what I hear from the driver, people who have driven them, pretty popular vans, partly because they have air conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, that's one of the Prime vans.
Very efficient design, too, when you think about it. It has some aerodynamics. It doesn't quite look like a brick going down the street,
right.
with a flat surface. But, yeah. Stylish too. So there's a follow-up question to Wayne Levitt's comment. He says he has the plasma leaking, or as he calls it, jam from the big screen in his Model S. He says, I run my air conditioning for half an hour every 4. Is that okay, or will I burn out my compressor? I took to our desert. Well, the compressor is actually an electric compressor, first of all. It's not like an ice engine where you have a fan belt that couples to the crankshaft that, feeds the alternator and air conditioner and a whole bunch of things. The power steering pump, I guess we could go on and on.
Yeah, all kinds of things.
I don't think you're going to run any risk of burning out that compressor because it is well designed. And here in Phoenix, people run those things continuously for at least, 6, 7, 8 months out of the year.
Yeah. And in fact, running the compressor in your car to keep the air, keep it on every so often, that actually helps, especially if you want to precondition your battery.
Right.
Here in Phoenix, we get 40 plus in the summertime. We had the unfortunate status of having the hottest North American temperature, 24-hour temperature in July of last year ever recorded in the United States, right here in Phoenix. And it would get down to 97 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 35 Celsius.
Down to,
yes. And it would get up to between 45 and 50. My white Tesla couldn't keep up if I didn't keep the air on, preconditioning my battery on a regular basis.
Right.
Never had any ill effects at all running that air conditioning like that. Even when I was keeping the car plugged in, I would have that battery preconditioning to cool down. It's good for the battery to have it be a little bit cooler like that.
Yeah. I love this next question from TikTok. Thanks for joining us, by the way. Joe Hollop says, if you got to design a battery, what would you want to see in it? My immediate answer is a tiny fusion reactor. If we can take a little chunk of the sun and put that into something like that for perpetual energy, basically, without all of the headaches and the lifespan issues and all the rest of that, or the radioactive material that you have to get rid of.
Yeah.
Isn't that the future, Jesse? This is where you usually chime in.
That is definitely the future.
And you think about it, what is it? 55, 60 years ago, we had Star Trek and their little flip communicators and everything else. And a lot of that science fiction stuff has turned into fact.
Yeah.
Why can't Iron Man's arc reactor, which is a fusion reactor, turn into fact as well so that it could power our cars?
Perfect. Now that you mentioned Star Trek, I need to I need to tell an interesting story. I saw a picture this morning.
Okay.
It was Captain Kirk.
Uh-huh.
All right. William Shatner standing by a split 60s Corvette, his car, obviously,
Okay. Uh-huh.
with a German Shepherd. And guess what the German Shepherd's name was? Kirk.
Kirk.
So I'm sure that his dog influenced the name of the captain. All right. TikTok. YouTube. Wayne Levitt, he says it's 1:08 a.m. in Perth now. I kind of figured you were in the middle of the night there.
Yep, I thought so as well.
Thanks for staying up, by the way.
Thank you.
Yep.
Highlander on YouTube. Yes, Jesse.
Just more of a realistic answer to Joe's question about what you want to see in a battery. I think one thing that we can say right away would be individual cell tracking, right?
Yeah, individual cell tracking and the a shunt trip circuit breaker that essentially takes that cell out of circuit if you have a problem.
I would think an ideal, since we're talking about what we could realistically want to see in these batteries, be able to see the ability to pull a cell out of series and replace it when it goes resistive.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that in the Roadster podcast, by the way. There's a company in Croatia that just did a video, and they've reignited the notion that you can replace cells in a 18650 type multi-cell module or sheet. So we're going to cover some of that in that portion.
That's good. That's something that would be really cool to be able to see. I'm not. I'll reserve comments for the
one thing too
for that company though.
I think this is still in development, and this is highly experimental. But there's a polymer out there that's being developed with this new material science matter gen AI that essentially it's like a bunch of tiny little pellets, like little BBs. And it would so imagine the pink potting compound inside of the newer batteries that Sandy Munro did his teardown on.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine that polymer being made up out of these tiny little BBs, and when you hit it with a certain sound frequency, they collapse and it's like sand. You can just take it out. But then when it's not being hit with that sound frequency and it's just regular, it's super hard, just like the potting compound is now. So that way you could go in, you could hit a specific area of it with this sound frequency. Mm-hmm. And then take out the cells as you need them, and then put it back to its hard state after.
Fascinating.
That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, another thing, and I remember when we were looking at that LaFerrari battery, the cells look like wafers. And I thought that was so intelligent because now instead of a bunch of cells with a bunch of potting compound holding them in and so on and so forth, you have these wafers. And what would it take to slide out a wafer and then slide another one in?
Pouches. A pouch
basically,
battery.
It's basically a pouch battery. But I thought that was also a really intriguing. And as we get to solid state, I would hope that they would have more along the line of those pouches like that instead of the cells in the potting compound. So, okay, YouTube Highlander says, I try to keep Jeff Lutz updated on the Rivian scene. The drivers love them. I'll try to send you guys some pics. Please do, Highlander.
Yeah.
We'd really like to see that.
Yeah. And he also says, I said I try to bring family, and there were 5 million of us on every continent. The Highlander, it takes time, folks. It takes time, but they're starting to show up.
That's good. That's good. 5 million across all continents, he continues. I don't know if that includes the 50 subgroups of Clan Buchanan, though.
Okay.
Then finally to the fusion reactor idea. Jesse, you're going to like this. He says, yeah, to the fusion reactor. And it was Gruber Motors that brought fusion to my attention.
Very cool.
You know, cool. A real quick side story. When I went to see my family in Colorado for Christmas, my family, they're very into technology, and they use the internet, and my dad does podcasting. My little brother has his master's in economics, and he's constantly just studying. I went to talk to them about fusion. None of my family members, cousins, brother, any of them had heard about the fusion announcement.
Really? Okay.
I thought it was incredibly strange that it doesn't appear that it's common knowledge like I thought it was.
It's not a mainstream concept yet.
Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, it seems like every few weeks I see something in the news that a new record has been broken as far as energy generation from fusion goes. And they're up to almost like 3-to-1 energy between energy input and energy coming out.
Yeah. All right. TikTok, Cyber Beast, he says, how often I need to balance my Cybertruck batteries, charged to 100%. We don't have the Cybertruck expertise yet. We've never even seen one in our service center or worked on one. Although one did show up about 2 months ago in November, remember?
I do remember that. It showed up. Unfortunately, it didn't show up during business hours.
In the middle of the night.
It was in the evening, but
tour.
they took this really cool picture right in front of Gruber Motors.
And they knew that Gruber Motors is kind of like a Tesla mecca. The early origins of Tesla with the Roadsters, and they wanted to be part of that. So they got a picture in front of our building. But yeah, we weren't there, so we didn't see it. But I can assure you, the instant we get one, we're going to report.
Now, I did do a quick lookup to see, because Cybertruck uses the 4680 batteries, the large almost D-cell batteries. Yeah. And it says the chemical composition ratios in those are 80% nickel, 10% lithium, 10% cobalt in the cathode. So they're NMC batteries. I was wondering if they were LFP batteries that you just can charge to 100%, but I'm not seeing that at this point. So that's just a very initial look here online, that they're more of the standard lithium ion, but they're the 4680 cells.
There was a time when Tesla switched batteries in one of the platforms, and I think it was the Model 3. Mm-hmm. And anyway, they went from lithium ion to lithium iron phosphate, which you can charge 100%. And the owners were confused. They said, well, what do I do? Do I charge 100% if I've got the older battery? We checked with Tesla, and they said that at any given point in time, the screen will tell you, it knows what kind of battery system you have.
Yes.
And it will give you instructions as to what the optimum charge is. In fact, in the Tesla Roadster, when you try to charge to 100%, it gives you a disclaimer and a warning. It says you shouldn't do this very often. It shortens the life of the battery. Are you sure you want to continue?
Well, and it was one of our commenters on the podcast that first alerted us to the idea that the Tesla manual itself was not consistent with what their recommendations online were. We were able to reach out to Tesla, and that manual has since been updated and has largely been rolled out to the vehicles across the world.
Yeah, that was Ray Johnson with the very growing and famous Facebook site now, the BMS 029 site.
Right.
A lot of people are joining that and getting a lot of help with how do I deal with my battery that's just begun throwing errors? What are my options?
Yes.
All right, I got another news item here for you. There's a company in the UK apparently called Arrival, an EV manufacturer, and after they say a promising start, which included backing from Hyundai and United Parcel Service, UPS, placing orders for its delivery van, it appears that Arrival will be sold for parts. The principals in the company, they made a statement and in a press release, and apparently they are filing. It appears that the company's 170 workers in the UK are going to lose their jobs at this point. The administrators are now exploring options for sale of the business and assets of the company, including EV vehicle platforms, software, intellectual property, and R&D assets for the benefit of the creditors, so that they get something out of this investment that they've made in this company that's no longer going to be solvent. They said that this company, Arrival, has been bleeding cash since 2021. And despite taking in $50 million in new money in 2023, it has run out of money before it sold a single vehicle.
That's a sad story there. I'm sorry to hear any vehicle maker go under. It really underscores how hard it really is to get to the point where you're able to manufacture vehicles and sell them to the public.
Yeah. So they mentioned a number of other EV companies that have gone bankrupt, and that includes, they say, a British company, battery maker British Volt, Proterra, and another, which is another EV battery maker, and Sweden's Volta Trucks, Lordstown Motors, which also intended to make EV pickup trucks. But like you, it's never good news when any of them fail, because what we need in order to switch over to sustainable energy use for transportation is a lot of these kinds of companies. And what's great about them is these types of companies present different options. It's kind of like the U.S. auto manufacturers.
Yeah.
You can recognize a Chevy from a Ford, from a Mopar, in an instant. And it gives its variety, which is the spice of life.
Well, yeah, it's not only a spice of life, that competition keeps people on their toes, makes for better products, and is better for the consumers as well.
Yep. All right. Wayne Levitt says, thank you. Last week, I took my Model S to our Pinnacles desert. Red Tesla looks beautiful with our Pinnacles and white sand dunes as a backdrop. Good point, Wayne.
You know, we probably should go ahead and get to the story that our entire image is based on here.
Sure.
And that's that Stellantis is adopting the NACS standard. They put this out in the press yesterday. My take, of course, is the last domino has finally fallen.
Remember, we talked about a few more. Canoe, VinFast.
Yeah, there's a couple of little ones. And was that last week or 2 weeks ago? It was
remember.
Very recently. We were talking about who was left.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, it was Canoe, it was VinFast, Stellantis, and the Stellantis group of models was the only major automaker that was left.
Right.
And yesterday they finally said that they've announced that their North American vehicle brands will adopt the J3400 SAE standard, which we know of as NACS, starting with some models in 2025, and as they transition, all models by the end of 2026 will have the NACS standard adapters. While they're doing the transition, like other automakers have announced, they will make adapters available to people who have the CCS ports so that they'll be able to plug into NACS chargers. Personally, I can't wait for that, by the way.
Really?
I'm looking forward to that. Stellantis is actually, they had another announcement wrapped into that first press release that I thought was also significant. We talked several months ago about a consortium of 7 automakers that were going to put together a charging network to rival Tesla. You remember that?
I do remember it, yeah.
And at the time we were like, okay, how is this going to work? It's going to be good for the industry because it's more charging stations for everybody. And Stellantis announced that they are continuing to move forward with their 6 partners to develop the Iona charging network. And they plan to have at least 30,000 charge points across the North American continent by 2030. The first of these should be done by the end of this year. And typically they'll use renewable energy, and everyone will have both a CCS and NACS plug.
Very cool. What I envision also is there will be a tipping point when there will be more charging stations than gasoline stations.
Yep.
Of course, there will be hybrids in the process. They're going to have have both at some point in time.
Yep.
But exclusive. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. At some point, isn't that the argument that you and I both hear a lot? People say, well, EVs are they're not going to be for us for the future because there's no infrastructure.
Right. And the grid won't be able to support it.
Yeah, and the grid won't be able to support them. And, and we'll if we have time, we'll get into that a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
So, Wayne Levitt on YouTube says, thank you. Last week, I took my Model S to our Pinnacles desert. Red Tesla looks beautiful with our Pinnacles and white sand dunes as backdrop. Wayne?
I actually read that already, but you did it better, so it sounded plausible.
Oh, okay.
Good job.
I was going to say, Wayne, I apologize. I wasn't keeping up. Send us a picture or a dozen, ev@gruber.com. We'd love to see pictures of that.
One of the places that we take pictures here of the Tesla Roadsters, because we sell them for our customers here, is a banquet event type place with a large outside rotunda. It's probably 150 foot diameter astroturf area with palm trees all around. So it's a gorgeous place, and they've given us permission to pull Roadsters out onto this turf to take pictures.
Oh, that's nice.
And what we're finding is that certain colors play better with the green AstroTurf, like red, definitely, the
Sure.
Radiant Red, the Fusion Red Roadsters. But the other day, I had a British Racing Green, which is a dark green, and I thought, this isn't going to play real well. But you know what? It was one of the most stunning shoots that we've done, because the sky at that point, we had cumulus clouds, and I waited until the sun hid behind the cumulus clouds. Beautiful white shadows up above in the reflection of the paint. We had done a paint correction, so it was, showing everything. And that dark green with the blue sky and the white and the green, it was a spectacular image.
I remember
actually.
seeing that image, and I like to call those hero images. I've heard that from the industry. That's what that was like. It looks so spectacular.
It made British Racing Green look spectacular. Not one of my favorite colors, by the way, but yeah, it looked great.
It's one that grows on you, I think.
Probably, yeah, especially if you're British.
Highlander, sodium iron looks like a good bet. It's cost effective. Highlander, I think the main questions that people have is about the energy density on that. Yet sodium iron energy density is going up consistently at about the same rate as the other lithium ion battery technologies, which incidentally is tremendous. It's about 30% a year as the research and developers continue to build and enhance their batteries.
The big concern with these batteries was going to be, are they going to destroy landfills? Are they going to contaminate the environment?
Right.
And what came along was these types of batteries in those EVs are actually high-grade ore. They have well into 90% recovery rates, which is redwood materials.
Yep.
And so unlike the old lead acid version where you have sulfuric acid and you have lead plates, these types of batteries are far more recyclable. And then, of course, we have graphene, which is, basically carbon, one of the most plentiful things on the planet, and something we're trying to get rid of rather than pump into the atmosphere.
Graphene is, to me, that's an exciting technology. It's super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I looked, it was somewhere around $200,000 a ton to build to produce graphene. By comparison, lithium is somewhere around $200 a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But graphene capabilities, where lithium is going increasing capacity like 30% annually or so, the research and development people with graphene are on a trajectory of almost 50% a year capacity improvements. It's not going to be very many years before graphene costs will come down and capacities will be high enough that it'll become cost effective.
Mm-hmm. TikTok. User 09864 says, we have a bolt in our fleet of EVs. A driver dented the front left corner of the battery housing. Cannot get parts to repair it. Very frustrating.
Wow, that would be.
Yeah, I don't know what Chevy's supply chain issue is, but that's a surprise, because there were a number of them built, and you would think that spare parts would be plentiful.
I wonder if this has anything to do with the Chevy Bolts having to be recalled because of battery issues.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know.
My roommate just got that in the mail because she's got a Chevy Bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just got the little letter in the mail saying that there was a recall on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what's happening is that their GM is going to be largely replacing these batteries because there's something in the actual manufacture and build of the battery that causes them to go into a thermal runaway condition.
Really? Okay. I thought that problem was solved some time ago, but looks like it's still plaguing them.
I think it's still plaguing them. That might be part of the reason why you can't get parts, though.
YouTube, Wayne Levitt, my Model S gave me that overcharging warning. I ignored it. A week later, I fully charged it again, and my max went down by 7 kilometers, 4.3 miles. Worth keeping an eye on. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, you might, if you're not part of the Ray Johnson YouTube group, the BMS U018/U029 group, I think is what it's called.
He's going to have to change that name. He's just going to have to. Ray Johnson's site would be much easier to remember, wouldn't it?
You'll get great information about batteries that get overcharge errors and start to go down in range and stuff like that. That would be a great group for you to be able to join. So I definitely would recommend it.
And you know what's so encouraging about that group? a bunch of people now are becoming experts because they're doing a lot of work on these cars.
Yes.
And they're continuously chiming in, and they're giving tech support to these owners. So it's definitely worth joining out on Facebook.
Yeah. Lido, Idaho has joined us today from YouTube. He says, hello, guys. So he asks, what are your thoughts on the 2014 Tesla Model S? This has 100,000 miles, and it's selling for between $14,000 and $16,000. And the future cost of battery refresh. Just want to know your thoughts on that. Thanks, guys.
You know, the price is within the range of what we're seeing. And it's kind of like gambling. You don't know if you're going to have a battery problem. There is no software available yet that is a predictor of battery problems in these type of cars. It would be nice if there was, you know. You can look at the amount of degradation. In the Tesla Roadster world, we have what's called calculated amp-hour capacity. And that's usually an indication of the amount of wear on the battery. But since none of the Roadster legacy packs yet have gone end of life, meaning that they finally have said, okay, we can't continue to store DC energy anymore, we don't know yet what that lifespan is. But at $14,000 to $16,000, all I can say is that's about the range that we're seeing for cars with that age and that type of battery.
Yeah, I know on Model Ys and Model 3s, and I'm checking here on the computer doing some research, you can get that calculated amp hour capacitor, that CAC value. And I think it may be possible on a Model S to get a CAC, but I am not completely sure yet. So if my research comes back, we'll report on it.
Smuggler sent us a gift from TikTok. Thank you, Smuggler. He's a regular. Crunch to Grace Hopper's joining us from YouTube. He says, from Newport Beach, SoCal, catching up from 30 minutes back. Punch that like button, y'all. YouTube Highlander, hi Crunch. Okay. And it's YouTube Highlander says, it's time for the sunglass commercial. The holder's right next to Mark's arm.
There's the holder. This is the one that I use, by the way, guys. Cass, do you want to run with it?
Sure, I'll run with one. So as some of you know, I now have a motorcycle. With my motorcycle, I've got a couple new helmets. One of my new helmets already has sunglasses in it, so I no longer need to carry my sunglasses on my face. So what do I do with my sunglasses? I throw them in my Gruber sunglass holder case while I ride my motorcycle.
You know, there's nothing worse than not storing your sunglasses properly. My wife does this. She'll leave it laying face down in the on the floor of the console, which is full of dust, and then she wonders why it has gray areas and
or scratches
areas.
even.
Yes.
Yeah, so you got to put them in your sunglasses case is what I do, and then I throw my little sunglass case in my book bag while I ride my motorcycle.
So this buttery leather sunglass case protects the sunglasses perfectly.
Yes.
It does. It does. It's because it's a full grain leather, the inside of this doesn't scratch the lenses at all, holds up really well. And so,
another thing I'm going to do too, did Richard shoot some of that footage over at your place of the laser yet?
He has some.
So we might get some of that, of these things, of the leather being cut and doing all this. So for people who don't know, some of it's cut with a really cool laser. But a lot of the process is done by hand too to make these things. So we can get some video that we can play during our ad spots.
Very cool. Yeah.
I'll check with Richard and I'll check our archives. The company that makes it is actually owned by family members of mine, and so I'll see if we have some video footage of that.
So we have another news item here, and this one is from a Lucid group website, or actually Facebook site, I should say. And we tried to research this, couldn't get much information, but what they're showing is somebody dressed in full Saudi garb. And what he's saying is that the Lucid factory will produce 5,000 to 10,000 cars in 2024, and then aiming to reach 150,000 cars annually over the next 5 years.
And that sounds like he's talking about the AMP2 production facility, which is in Saudi Arabia. You and I were talking about it and doing a little research, and And AMP2 is up and running in Saudi Arabia. They're starting by basically getting kit cars. Most of the car build takes place in Casa Grande right now, gets shipped over to Saudi Arabia, and then they finish the assembly of the vehicle in Saudi Arabia and then sell it. By the way, the Saudis have a standing order for up to 100,000 vehicles, Lucid Airs from Lucid, for their government use and so on and so forth. I think this dovetails with the timeline on their AMP2 production facility that's located in Saudi Arabia, though, that they're hoping to produce 5,000 to 10,000 cars this year, fully manufactured in Saudi Arabia. And then by 2030, I think it is, overall, Lucid is hoping to have production capacity of 500,000 cars a year, with 350,000 being here in Casa Grande, Arizona, and the other 150,000 being in the kingdom.
Right. For those of you that missed our last podcast, or maybe it was the one before last, I was actually privileged to take a tour of the Lucid factory because it was family day, and my son works there. So it was very convenient. He says, I'm bringing my father. And actually ran into Peter Rawlinson completely by accident. I was standing there doing a TikTok video with my cell phone, not knowing what I'm doing, because usually social media does that. And I turn around, and a guy pulls up in a Lucid Air. And I looked over again, and it was Peter Rawlinson driving the car. So he gets out. He recognized me, and I said, yeah, I'm here. And I felt the need to explain why I'm at his family event.
Yes.
And I said, my son works here. He says, I know, you have the same name. So, but anyway, what I wanted to share with you about Lucid is it is not one of these fly-by-night companies that are stretched financially, that are beginning to show signs of decline. There are plenty of those, without mentioning names, where you can see the factory production floor is virtually empty.
Right.
Take a look at the staff count. Look at the amount of revenue generated. What I saw was an extremely efficient, high-tech operation with robotic arms everywhere, and a very well-populated production area. Mind you, they've got just under 4 million square feet, so this was not some small building that could easily be filled.
Right.
And it took one tour was like 20 minutes. The other one was near 40 minutes just to go. And we didn't get through the entire plant. We just got to go in, penetrate a bit, and then come back out.
Wow.
But anyway, it's a company that looks like they're going to be here to stay. And I think it was a brilliant move to have somebody from Saudi Arabia actually begin to talk about their production goals. Because the big concern with many of these Johnny-come-lately EV wannabe manufacturers is, will they have the financial funding to survive the predictable cash burn that they're going to go through as they begin to, purchase capital equipment and go into production mode. It turns out that I have no concerns about Lucid because the type of investors that are backing them. It's not the fickle, stock market investors or even venture capitalists or angel investors who want to see return on investment within a predictable period of time. The Saudi PIF fund, again, this is their second act. They're going to be moving from a non-renewable resource into something that is sustainable. And why would they bail? What would they bail to and do?
Exactly. And in fact, if you remember, when we were looking in depth at Tesla at the end of the third quarter, we saw that 19 out of the top 20 investors were large institutional investors. Places like Fidelity and Charles Schwab, and I think Peter Rawlinson was that 20th person.
Really? Okay.
That as CEO, he got into a large amount of stock holdings. The other 19 were all high-grade, high-quality institutional investors.
Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, that's it was an encouraging article, and it predicted some production goals that, oh, by the way, they're making police cars in Saudi Arabia.
I was just going to say, I got that picture.
Yeah, please do.
Let's bring
throw
it
that up.
Yeah. We reported on that in the last podcast, and there's all kinds of high-tech features in this car, including AI, which take it well beyond your normal trooper in a car with some bubble top type lights. But there are drones that can be launched from this car for a felony pursuit, for example.
Yeah.
Facial recognition
They'll
software.
chase people, the drones.
Yeah,
If somebody gets off and starts running through sidewalks or something, or the drones will just follow them.
That's crazy, man.
And the this isn't, out of place for this part of the Middle East. The United Arab Emirates, for example, I think they use Lamborghinis for their police cars.
Yeah, that's right. I've heard that too. This is so Big Brother, isn't it, though? When you think about it.
It sure is. It sure is. But at the same time, getting Lucid and Lamborghini mentioned together in the same sentence for something they have in common is pretty cool. Hindafinga on YouTube has a great pointer for us, and thank you for giving this to us. There's an Android app called Scammy Tesla, and it will show
Scan My Tesla. You're right. I forgot about that one.
Not Scammy.
No, that's an N and an M.
Scan My Tesla. It can calculate it and show the CAC value on a Model S.
Thank you for sharing that, Hindafinga. You're right. Yeah. In fact, on that Facebook site I was telling you about, you see a number of people using that. They purchased it, and they're using Scan My Tesla to extract telemetry from the battery, its condition.
Oh, that's great. Well, and CAC value, it's kind of become that magic number. It's not a be all end all. But it is about as good a gauge of battery health as you're going to find, because it's almost a perfect correlation between the overall health of your battery and the CAC value. Higher is better.
But let's remember, it's not a predictor of lifespan.
Exactly. That's why it's not perfect. It's you don't know when you're going to get on the Model S that BMS error.
Sure. In the Roadster world, a healthy CAC could be as high as 150. The weaker ones are about 140, 120, 130. Yeah, those aren't great. We've got a customer that's under 100, and he's been driving his Tesla Roadster for 2 years with that CAC level.
Yeah.
What is failing are the 2016 packs, which was a replacement pack that Tesla briefly manufactured in 2016. And it finally taught us how the legacy Roadster packs how they were going to go end of life.
Right, and the CAC values on those 2016 packs, if I remember right, report as high values.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But it's not the ability of the battery to take a charge and hold a charge. It's the ability of the battery to discharge properly, because these batteries on the 2016 pack have impedance issues.
The ability to deliver power. All right, Instagram, IN2023 says, hey, thank you for joining us.
Hey.
Highlander says, go Team Cass. There we go. I buy one when she gets part of the cut.
Okay. So Jesse, it's time to set up that CAS code so that we can get our sunglass case sold.
She already has one. It's AARON.
Pretty crafty, Aaron. He almost got away with that one. YouTube Highlander. Oh yeah, he says, don't drive up my Lucid stock. I need to buy more. He's been complaining about that. We keep promoting it.
Yes.
Today it was down actually. You could have bought it at I think 340 or something like that, 342. That was the low today.
Yeah.
It's hovering around 350, but the stock market is fickle. There will be, in fact, today the Dow, when I looked at it, was down 500 points.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons I think that, Lucid was suffering a bit. There will be more buying opportunities. And the rule in investing is buy low, sell high. It's that simple.
And the corollary to that rule, if you're going to be a long-term investor, just buy regularly.
Yeah.
They call it dollar cost averaging. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're going to buy high, sometimes you're going to buy low. But if that stock is on an upward trajectory, the overall average cost of the stock is going to be well below what you end up selling it for in the future.
Yep. YouTube, Wayne Levitt says, thank you very much. I love watching Tesla being pulled apart for repairs. They look awesome to work on. I have fixed my screen washers and replaced 3 clips. LOL.
Yeah.
You know, having worked on the old ICE cars, the level of complexity with these EVs, other than the software perhaps, is infinitely easier than working on an ICE car.
Yeah, by and large, it seems to be. It does take kind of a different skill set, but well, of course, the ICE cars have somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 parts, and a typical EV has what, 100?
Yeah, and the kind of cars that I worked on, if you had metric equipment, none of it would take off any hardware. It was all SAE parts. Crunchy Grace Hopper just saw JHaThink's post on perovskite solar. Any plans for your roof? No, but I do need to do something about that. We charge off the grid at home all the time, and my wife always says, "Why don't we have solar? Our neighbors have it."
Yeah, that's and I don't know if he's even asking about the commercial roof for the car storage as well. Have you announced the name of that new venture yet here on podcast?
No, we haven't. All right, so let's give it a bit of an introduction. One of our buildings right now, about 8,200 square feet, is they're finishing reconstruction on it. It was one that went through a fire almost 2.5 years ago. And it's a gorgeous build. We're going to have 100% AC instead of evap coolers.
Right.
It is going to be an exotic car storage facility for electric vehicles. And the first EV collector car is the Tesla Roadster.
That's right.
So it will have 2 or 3 level storage capacity. It will be like a science fiction building in that we'll have umbilical cords coming down to each of the cars. Those will be carefully monitored by OVMS systems with large flat screens in a control room, 24/7 monitoring, because these collectors don't ever want their car to get bricked.
Right.
Bricked meaning that, that the battery goes south because you haven't charged it. And we're looking forward to having a really cool EV storage facility. It should be operational by summer. We'll have some finishing touches yet to do within the next few months. But the name that we came up with was EV Preserve.
That's right.
And there's actually a logo there, Jesse. I don't know if you can find it. It should be in the social drive or the studio drive. But if he can bring it up, we'll show you what the new logo looks like.
So I'm looking forward to that new venture being up and running, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, EV Preserve, guys.
Well, you and GMC, because we're swimming in cars.
Oh, yeah.
And we need operating room. Cars keep coming in.
How many of those cars that are in the GMC? Because we keep all of our Roadsters under roof. That's
always, yes.
Always under roof. So how many of those cars are we keeping under roof that we are basically storing for people?
I don't know what the ratio is, but I would say it's probably about 20-30% are storage cars or long-term cars.
Okay.
And then we have a group of cars that are continuously coming in. We would love to get to the Model S's and the other platforms. Oh, there's the logo.
There it is.
You go. By the way, I'd love to take credit or have a graphic designer be able to take credit. This was AI. It took a number of iterations, but we wanted something that spoke sports car, that had kind of a smiling face, which this does.
Yep.
No? Okay. And then, of course, the plug on top.
Yep. And it really captures what we're trying to do there.
Yeah. All right. I've got another news item here. If we've got a picture that can be brought up, it's called trains. And this one was fascinating, actually. We're always looking for ways the planet is changing to sustainable energy. And turns out Dutch trains run entirely on wind energy. One windmill running for an hour can power a train for 120 miles. That is an amazing ratio when you think about it.
That is.
Okay.
These things have to be huge. Yeah.
I'm pulling up that image right now. Just, we have 1.5 minutes and we got some questions still too.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. So anyway, quick finish here. Around 5,500 trips facilitated every day. The system allows for 500,000 passengers to commute daily without any emissions.
That's just amazing. So Highlander on YouTube, he has it says, "Great question, Grace. What are Gruber's ambitions with solar?" We've talked a little bit about that. If you want to move the screen, we can get to the rest of our questions. Crunch to Grace responding to Highlander. You got it, Highlander. On YouTube, Easy EV says, "On my 2018 Model X, I've noticed some fading on the main screen around the edge. And now where there was lighter color, there's this really thin band." And I'm just like, oh, but oh well.
And then finally, Highlander, he says, "Pete will get this reference, beep, beep," with lots of laughs. He's talking about the Plymouth Roadrunner that actually had a beep, beep horn, just like the,
Like the cartoon?
Yeah, the cartoon character.
That's funny.
The Roadrunner. And
Well, join us in about 5 minutes. We have the Roadster version of the podcast coming up, the Roadster Roundtable, and we look forward to seeing you. Thanks for joining us.